Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. It's day 36 of the longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani promising a radical transformation of the Big Apple following his stunning election as the next mayor of America's largest city. Voters in California approving a plan to redraw the state's congressional boundaries in favor of Democrats as the nationwide redistricting battle kicks into high gear. And a leading European transportation company taking swift action after discovering their new Chinese-made electric buses can actually be turned off remotely by their manufacturer. Also, why a dozen moderate Democrats are now likely to consider breaking ranks with their comrades and support a deal to reopen the federal government. And this. A decades-old sandwich from a very familiar fast food joint hasn't aged a bit, and while it still looks possibly sort of kind of edible, it might be best to admire the burger from afar. All this and much more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to, and we begin today in New York City, where the 34-year-old Democratic Socialist who's just been elected mayor, now vowing to radically alter the Big Apple, make things better for the struggling working class, and fight back against the Trump administration every step of the way. Well, that's some campaign promise for you. I'm going to fight the president. In case you missed it, Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani won this week's election by a convincing margin over his fellow candidates Andrew Cuomo, a Democrat, and Curtis Sliwa, a Republican. Now, with the victory, he now becomes the first Muslim to hold the position, the first of South Asian descent as well. And when he takes office on January 1st, he'll be the city's youngest mayor in more than a century. And I say quit bragging about being first and maybe think about being best. Mamdani says that by choosing him for the position, the people of New York City have finally spoken up and delivered a progressive mandate for change. I hope change doesn't include pennies on account of they're harder to find now than $2 bills. However, he's now facing the practical reality of trying to fulfill his ambitious list of campaign promises, including lowering the cost of living by providing free childcare, no-cost buses. Well, there'll be a cost to somebody. You got to dig a little deeper on that. And city-run grocery stores. Additionally, he's hoping to drastically raise taxes on the wealthy to pay for it all. And perfect. You steal from the evil moneyed-up class and then buy your way into the hearts of the poor folk. That's some strategy. Adding even more fuel to the fire, the mayor-elect now throwing down the gauntlet and directly taunting President Trump. He says New York will always remain a city of immigrants, that he'll stand up for everyone who lives there as well, except for rich people, and that he's hoping to set an example for the entire country by standing up to Trump. For his part, 47 has repeatedly referred to Mamdani as a communist, vowing to withhold federal funds from the city and perhaps even take it over completely if the 34-year-old ever won the election. Well, he just won the election. Let's see what happens next. President also suggesting that he might even try to arrest and deport the Uganda-born Mamdani. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Well, congratulations, there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani. Kind of sounds like a superhero, or maybe a supervillain. New York, in all of your infinite wisdom, you've just elected a Democratic Socialist to lead your fine metropolis. And perhaps you've made a wise decision because, best as I can tell, socialism, yeah, it works. For example, look at the great successes they've had with socialism in Cuba. And while you do that, don't focus too heavily on the poverty, the food and medicine shortages, blackouts, deplorable living conditions, and yeah, people actually trying to escape that fabulous socialist island nation. You know, on second thought, maybe Cuba was a bad example, or maybe not. I can't tell. Yeah, no, we don't want to give this Zohran fella too much space on the page, but just a reminder, this is a guy who makes very clear that one of his goals is to fight back against the Trump administration, the administration which is trying to make the entire country and the whole world a safer place. How do you fight against that? Now, the former New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, makes clear that this Mamdani loon is wrong for America's biggest town, but he was, by all accounts, at least kind of polite with his concession speech. New York, enjoy your freebies. And remember, when the well runs dry, when robbing from the rich to give to the poor pans out to be nothing but an old, tired, and ineffective way of running the Big Apple, you're going to be hit with a reality check. It's not going to be pleasant. Here's the deal, and there's an old saying that goes like this: be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. New York, you've made a big mistake. You've chosen poorly, and you're not going to like what you get. All right, what say you on the big election? Tell us what you're thinking. And we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And producer Davey, you've just been elected email postmaster general. And who's up first?
Okay, Bill. We've got Lafayette.
Wait. You didn't put your email postmaster hat on. Chop, chop.
Oh, yeah, Bill, you're right. Here you go. Let me put this on right now. There we go.
Pull it down just a little bit.
Postmaster General hat on, Bill.
There you go. All right, who's up first?
Okay, Lafayette from Boston, Massachusetts.
Hello, Lafayette.
He says it's wonderful to make pie-in-the-sky promises, but sooner or later you have to deliver the goods. Mamdani can never live up to the hype, and he's going to ruin the city.
He is going to take it down unless President Trump jumps in and pulls him out before he can destroy that fine city. Look, the city offered you champagne, New York, and you opted for warm, flat suds. Curtis Lee, well, he would have been a brilliant mayor. Even Mr. Cuomo would have been mildly effective, but for some goofbag reason, y'all chose a Democratic socialist. Yeah, good luck with that. Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, we've got Mandy checking in from West Philadelphia.
Oh, Mandy, you're my second Mandy. The first one, of course, made famous by Barry Manilow, and you are now famous because you're on the News Roundup. Mandy, what say you?
Mandy says Mamdani is a breath of fresh air.
Oh.
He represents a new dawn for America, and we're all excited to finally watch someone stand up to Trump and tell it like it is.
Well, that's not a campaign promise saying you're going to stand up to Trump. How does that move the city forward? How does offering free things to everybody move the city forward? A few people, they'll glom on to that, but in the end, yeah, the bill's going to come due, and who's going to pay for it? Because all the wealthy folks who you want to tax to pay for that, they're going to bail out of New York in what they call a New York minute. All right, switch things up now just a bit and shift our focus to the results of another critical vote which just took place on America's left coast. That's my coast out here. By a wide margin, California voters giving their overwhelming approval to a ballot measure which allows Democrats to redraw the Golden State's congressional map and pick up as many as 5 additional seats in the 2026 midterm elections. Well, no guarantees, but they're doing all they can, in fact, to steal the show. So, the passage of Governor Gavin Newsom's Proposition 50 amounts to a significant win for the Democrats who are looking to counter a number of Republican efforts to redistrict their states in favor of the GOP. I think somebody better call a ref. I think we're getting set for a 15-rounder. Newsom points out that by giving their thumbs up to his measure, California's voters were part of a nationwide rejection of President Trump's policies. No, not even remotely accurate. He owns vineyards, and maybe he may have been sampling his own products when he said that. Doesn't make a bit of sense. He also warns that the fight is just beginning, that the real battle is going to take place next year, and that if Democrats can somehow regain control of the House, they can basically end Trump's presidency as we know it. Well, that's a fine American governor for you. His job is to apparently drag down the president. This Newsom guy and that Mamdani guy, they might make a good team. Prior to the election, former President Barack Obama chimed in by urging voters to support Proposition 50, saying that passing the measure was necessary in order to stop Republicans from stealing enough seats to rig the election and wield unchecked power for another couple of years. But he got that kind of backwards there, President O. Newsom is the big thief here, and you're supporting him. Good job. In the meantime, the nationwide redistricting fight far from over as a number of other states continue to consider drawing up new congressional lines in order to benefit their preferred political party, both for the 2026 midterm elections and for the years which will follow. Final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. You got to wonder about a governor who's responsible for representing everyone in his state, about 40 million people, but has now pretty much abandoned and disregarded roughly 50% of the crowd. Now, here's what that Governor Navin Gruesome guy is up to. His goofy Prop 50 efforts are meant to drag down the state by redistricting and therefore manipulating the system and rigging the votes. Think about it. It's pretty much criminal. When you do that, and he's only doing it to retaliate against other states which are doing the exact same thing, you end up disenfranchising Republicans to favor your chosen party, and all in some kind of a backroom attempt to pick up a handful of House seats in next year's midterms. This guy's so daft that he can't come up with a legitimate or creative way to rock the vote, so he's simply copying someone else, and check out his endgame. Simply wants to be a roadblock to the Trump administration's lofty agenda, while at the same time trying to look like a big boy as he prepares to run for president in a couple of years. You know he's going to do it. First up, he's got to destroy California, then try to dismantle the entire country. Hey, Producer Davey, as I always say, caveat emptor. Caveat emptor.
Caveat emptor? What's that?
Caveat emptor. That's Latin for buyer beware. I learned that from the 1971 episode of The Brady Bunch. It was either Latin or Portuguese. Pretty sure it was Latin. I don't know. America, what are you thinking? And drop us a note, newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And Davey, who's up first?
Okay, Bill, we start with Loretta from Jackson, Mississippi.
Hello, Loretta.
She says, a great victory for Newsom and the people of California, who are intelligent enough to know that Republicans are trying to rig the election and are willing to do something about it.
Well, I don't know how Republicans are rigging the election if Governor Newsom is ignoring all of the Republicans in his state and then rigging the election for the Democrats. That doesn't equate to Republicans rigging an election. It's Democrats rigging an election. Confusing. Davey, who's up next?
Okay, Bill, here's something following up on that from Lance in Jacksonville, Florida.
Hi, Lance. Break it down for us.
He says this is just another scam by the Democrats. If you can't win the game, change the rules, and that's what they always try to do.
Yeah, if you can't win, cheat. Yeah, the state of California is not Newsom's play toy, however. I'm calling foul on this one. Graft, if you will. The lovely people in the Golden State, in some kind of a stupor, they elected you governor, and your job is to represent everybody, not just the Democrats. You failed miserably in your job, and all as a means to an end to drag down President Trump. That's real bright. You're a real fine guy. What a dope. This makes absolutely no sense. All right, change things up just a bit now. Turn our attention to a dire warning from a Norwegian bus company concerning the extreme security risk that comes with buying electric vehicles made in China. You know, I wouldn't buy China made in China. I certainly wouldn't buy a bus from that country. This is amazing. A leading public transportation firm from Norway, they're called Ruter, says they're immediately ratcheting up their defenses and ramping up their anti-hacking measures after discovering that their new fleet of Chinese-made electric buses can be remotely turned off by the company that produced them overseas in China. Ruter says that following a series of special underground tests, they realized the China-based manufacturer has direct and complete access to the control systems in each and every one of their electric coaches. You know, it's kind of like that song from Neil Diamond called Song Sung Blue from the 1970s. It's actually not like that at all, but I always liked Neil Diamond, and I wanted to mention him on today's show. Hi, Neil. Hey, Producer Dave, you a big Neil Diamond fan?
He's all right, Bill. That's what I can say. He's okay.
I was always a big fan. Neil Diamond and electric buses made in China, they don't go hand in hand, but I want to give a plug for Neil Diamond. They always say that the bus maker claims that remote access allows them to provide necessary software updates to the vehicle. It can also potentially be exploited to take control of the bus's power and battery supply, potentially turning it off and stopping it from running. Now, as a result, Ruter says they're now in the process of updating all of their security systems in order to intercept the incoming signals from China, prevent hacking, and protect themselves from the potential interference of those guys. Yeah, the Chinese Communist Party. You're watching us? We're watching you. For their part, the Chinese company which made the buses claims they've done nothing wrong. You know, Dick Nixon said the same thing way back when. He said something along the lines of, I'm not a crook. I've done nothing wrong. I remember that very well.
Well, I'm not a crook. I've burned everything I've got.
They say all their collected data, it's encrypted, stored in Germany, and only used to improve the operation of their vehicles. Don't buy it. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Hey, Norway, here's the skinny. And not the buses are skinny, but here's the skinny. There's no shortage of companies right here in the U.S. which manufacture a huge number of buses and for tons and tons of customers. You know, we make school buses, transit buses, tour buses, and more. Our buses, they carry students, commuters, and even rock stars traveling between their luxury accommodations at the Hollywood Motel 6 and over to the legendary Hollywood Bowl and right back to the Motel 6 again. And as a side note, both venues, they leave the lights on for you. Hey, Producer Davey, did you know they leave the lights on for you?
Oh, yeah, Bill. Everybody knows Motel 6 leaves the lights on for you.
They leave the lights on for you. At the Hollywood Bowl, not so much. But the Motel 6, absolutely. Now, on behalf of every one of those bus building outfits here at home, we'd like to encourage you to abandon those goofy rides you've purchased from the glorious People's Republic of China and check out our buses. Now, a little comparison contrast. The buses you're buying from China are most likely spying on you, perhaps your customers as well, and in a variety of ways. More importantly, this new revelation that the Chinese-made buses can be turned off remotely by the flick of a switch, that could be life-threatening. And not one of those little light switches, one of those big switches you see in Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory, the big giant one where you have to pull down real hard. Now, our buses, on the other hand, they come in a number of forms: electric, gas, diesel, CNG, compressed natural gas, and more. We don't include spying devices as a standard feature, and we have no interest in turning your buses on or off. Now, to my knowledge, we offer superior bumper-to-bumper warranty. Safety is always job number one, and we will match or beat the price of any China-manufactured bus each and every time. In Norway, you have a choice. Buses from China, clearly not in your best interest, and always buy from a company you can trust. Team USA. Now, tell us what you're thinking, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. And for folks who don't know, producer Davey, not just the producer of the News Roundup, he's also the News Roundup bus driver whenever we hit the road. That's the guy behind the wheel. Davey, hit that bus horn a couple of times real quick, and then off to the email bag. What do you got?
Okay, Bill, thanks for the plug. Yeah,
absolutely.
Judy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, checking in.
Cutie, share your thoughts with us.
She says, this is scary stuff.
Yeah.
The Chinese Communist regime is booby-trapping every electronic product they sell to the West.
Yeah.
And if we want to survive the coming war, we should stop buying from them immediately.
Well, we can't stop buying from China, the same as China can't stop buying from us. We are trade partners. We have been for years and years, maybe decades and decades, and moving forward, especially with the recent agreements between Trump and President Xi, we'll keep those trade agreements moving forward. Your thought is not lost on me. It'd be great if we could just push China aside. But the bottom line is we need each other. Keep your friends close, as we always say, and your enemies closer. And Davey, one more. Who's next?
Okay, Bill, Clark from Pocatello, Idaho, checking in.
There was a Clark bar back in the 1970s, a fine candy bar, and if memory serves correct, kind of like a Butterfinger. Remember the Clark bar, Davey?
Oh, yes. Good eating, Bill.
That's some good eating. Clark, what's on your mind, sir?
Clark says another example of how communist China is conspiring to sabotage the entire world.
Yeah.
If you're looking for the bad guy, look no further.
Yeah, stay away from that new technology. I have an 8-track player from Radio Shack back in the 1970s. 8-track stereo works just fine. Don't want any of the new stuff because I'm afraid of being spied on. By the way, this should come as no surprise to anybody that China, they're spying on you. They're big on the cybercrime circus. Their buses can now be manipulated remotely. And take a look at their country. They've got more cameras over there than they have blades of grass. This is not a pleasant organization to do business with. Now, some additional headlines we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. And first up, a glimmer of hope in Washington as a group of bipartisan lawmakers on Capitol Hill, they appear to finally be negotiating an end to the longest shutdown, the government shutdown in U.S. history. Among them, 12 moderate Democrats weighing a proposal to pass several short-term funding bills. And this is in exchange for a future Senate vote regarding the extension of government-funded health care subsidies. Somebody is coming to their senses. Turning now to breaking developments in the deadly crash of a UPS cargo plane in Louisville, Kentucky. Federal investigators now revealing that the plane's left wing ignited and that an engine fell off completely before that plane crashed and exploded shortly after takeoff. That disaster killing at least 12 people, including one child. And moving along now to the Kremlin, Russia's President Vladimir Putin ordering his security team to begin putting together proposals concerning the possible resumption of nuclear tests by Moscow. That move apparently coming in direct response to President Trump's claim that our nation is currently preparing a bit of nuclear testing on our own. And breezing on over to the world of business now, and a quick glance at a couple of stories making waves in finance, also in commerce, and more. And leading off, American Airlines announcing plans to trim their payroll and cut their losses by eliminating hundreds of mid-level management and support staff jobs at the company's sprawling Texas headquarters. Skipping along to a bit of auto industry news, Toyota, Honda, and Suzuki all shelling out billions of dollars apiece in order to pivot away from China and shift a bunch of their car manufacturing operations over to India. I didn't know Suzuki still makes cars. They're in that business, Davey?
Oh, yeah, big time, Bill. And, I think they support They produce about 40% of all the vehicles used in India.
Had no idea. I remember back in the late 80s, they made something called a Suzuki Samurai, a little kind of a Jeep car. Looked like a lot of fun, but if I remember correctly, they weren't entirely safe. All right, staying on topic, some additional news concerning Toyota. The Japan-based automaker recalling more than 1 million of their vehicles right here in the USA due to what they're calling a significant rear view camera issue, which could potentially lead to a crash. But not if you're going forward, right, Davey?
No, Bill. If you're going backwards, you use the camera, not if you're going forward.
That's what I was thinking. And now time to take a bite out of the lighter side of news. And today we take a look at the world's oldest living hamburger. A legendary McDonald's Quarter Pounder that a guy bought 30 years ago in Australia. Yeah, it's still alive and kicking. The sandwich's longtime owner claims his so-called senior burger hasn't aged a day since he picked it up from his local Golden Arches. And that was back in 1995. And in those days, Toy Story, that was in the theaters. Windows 98, that was something on the horizon. Hadn't even been invented yet. He says that ever since then, the Quarter Pounder has remained in its original Mickey D's packaging, that even though it's never been refrigerated, not one bit of mold has ever grown on the burger, and that it doesn't even have the slightest whiff of a bad aroma. Gotta love that. Also says that over the years, his prized Quarter Pounder has shrunk a little bit in size, that it no longer looks anything like food at all, and that someday he hopes to put it in some kind of art museum. Yeah, they can have it. Well, this just proves scientifically once and for all that the Quarter Pounder, with or without cheese, is the most perfect food. Now, you look at cheese. Cheese itself, it's bad. Even in the fridge, after a short chunk of time, you'll see that green mold begin to dominate the sharp cheddar. And producer Dave, are you a sharp cheddar kind of guy, or do you like the stinky stuff, the Limburger cheese?
Oh, Bill, I'd probably go with the pepper jack, if you know what that is.
Oh, the pepper jack. Well, because you're a Spam guy. Pepper jack on Spam, that's some good eating right there. Now, after a few days, even a gorgeous yellow banana, it morphs into an evil, spotted, brown, mushy hunk of expired fruit. But the Quarter Pounder, like its best friend, the Hostess Twinkie, has a 100-year shelf life. And in my mind, both the meat and the treat deserve high respect. Davey, do they deserve high respect?
Oh, absolutely, Bill. The highest of respect. It's good stuff.
They deserve high respect. All right, Producer Davey, I got to have me a Quarter Pounder with cheese now, and maybe a couple of Twinkies as well. By the way, you take a Quarter Pounder with 2 Twinkies and you put it right in the middle and you mush it all down real good. That's as good as it gets. Bottom line is, a 30-year-old bottle of French wine only gets better and pricier with age, and same holds true for Quarter Pounders, as well as most of the highly prized Hostess products. They live forever. Now, Producer Dave, you are both a friend and a fan of the Golden Arches. So I ask you, do their products have a shelf life? And would you agree that with regard to Quarter Pounders, age doesn't matter, right?
I would agree 100%, Bill. Those things are delicious when they come hot off the griddle, and they just keep getting better with time.
They age very lovely, don't they? And now time for a scholar wrap on the Wednesday edition of our Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day here on the program, we share with you a very notable quote. And these inspiring words come to us today from a guy called Calvin Coolidge, who said, "To live under the American Constitution is the greatest political privilege that was ever accorded to the human race." So, Calvin was an American politician who served as the governor of Massachusetts, as our nation's vice president as well, and as the 30th president of the United States, 1923 to 1929. Also, this Calvin guy, didn't he also invent the Calvin Klein jeans, Davey?
No, Bill. This was a president of the United States. He had nothing to do with making jeans.
Oh, well, the Calvin thing, it just kind of made sense to me. All right, now time for us to head on out. But before we go, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do. Ask what you can do for your podcast. All pretty basic. You see that little subscribe button over there? Yeah, push it. That way you never miss even a single episode. And now it looks like our time. Yeah, it's officially up. Have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. Let's all continue to watch out for one another. It's a pretty simple assignment. And with that, Engineer Jamie, please let's dim the lights. We're going to fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon.